Alright, hello everyone. In this occasion, I'm Nur Karimah and my friend Della Elysia Aprilia will be present about women's education related to the Kartini's letter.
Do you know who Kartini is? Before we go deeply to our main topic, which is about the differences between education nowadays and in the 18th century, we have to know about the woman that brought these such big differences. Kartini, or also known as Raden Ayu Kartini, was born on April 21, 1879, was an activist who advocated for women's rights and education. During her lifetime, she wrote many letters which were later recorded as Habis Gelap Terbitlah Terang.
So the letters of a Javanese princess, or Habis Gelap Terbitlah Terang, tells about the life of Kartini's struggle in upholding the advancement of women's rights. So mostly in the book, Kartini wrote letters to her sister and friends stating about Kartini's journey to fight for women's rights in Indonesia.
Kartini is one of the roles that brought significant changes, especially for women in Indonesia. The reason why Kartini really do her best to fight for gender equality is because in her point of view, there are a big discrimination of women in her era. They are forced to stay at home and not allowed to leave their house. Besides that, they are not allowed to get an education. They also have to get married with a man who they didn't know before. And because of that, marriage looked like something that really makes them feel unhappy. Kartini played a significant role in influencing and forming the education system in Indonesia. She also started to open up the idea of feminism, which is related to gender equality in Europe.
So it started from her hobby of reading newspaper, magazine, and books given by her pen pal. As we can see here the picture of Rosa Manuel Abandonon as Kartini's pen pal. So Rosa paid attention to the problems of Indonesian women relating to equality of right, freedom, autonomy, and equality in the eyes of the law. Then Kartini realized that the best step to initiate emancipation for Indonesian women was through the education. Therefore, she was determined to build the first women's school in Indonesia, which is located in Jepara in 1903. Here is the illustration of education during the colonial period. There was a large gap between males and females, and also only respected people can get an education easily. This picture shows the gap between Western people and Pribumi people in the way they get the education through the facilities and others. But in nowadays, both men and women can get the education properly through the facilities, media, and others. And also the government provides so many scholarships, which of course make it easier for people to get the education.
As we know, the way to get an education nowadays is easier than in the 18th century or in the Kartini era. In the Kartini era, education was like the most luxurious thing in the world, especially for women. In that era, women tend to stay at home and got no education because they were supposed to be in the kitchen, bed, and only do domestic jobs such as washing clothes, cooking, cleaning the house, and taking care of their family. In that era, women tend to stay at home and got no education because they were supposed to be in the kitchen, bed, and only do domestic jobs such as washing clothes, cooking, cleaning the house, and taking care of their family. But nowadays, there are many children who don't take their education seriously. There are so many children who choose to play mobile games on their phone rather than reading a book. It's really sad to know that. Besides that, there are many teenagers that doing bad activities such as smoking, free sex, and even using drugs. It's really not good for our futures because as a teenager, they have a role as the future of our country. After all the struggle that Kartini did to make the bright futures for Indonesian people, can we imagine if we lived in the colonial era, everything would feel so hard, especially to get an education. We should be grateful we live in this era, where we can get everything in an easier way rather than in the colonial era. It's such a blessing that we don't have to fight for everything, especially education, as hard as our ancestor in 18th century is. Because of that, as a form of our respect to Kartini who has already fought for gender equality in Indonesia, we must study hard so that we can make a brighter future for our lovely country, Indonesia.
Well, I think that's all from us. Thank you very much for your nice attention. See you and goodbye.